Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Speed Street Podcast. My name is Connor Daly, and I am currently locked out of my house. So I am doing the show from my car outside of my house. If life could throw any more, curveballs at you, well, I'm sure it'll happen to plenty. Could be way worse, but I thought I was going to have a wonderful setup in the house for this Dario Franchitti interview that we have today. And turns out I've just been sitting in my car now for an hour and a half as we do this show. So
it's a great aesthetic.
What had happened was, Chase, is that my garage door opener apparently just decided not to work. I went out to get some groceries. I needed a 9-volt battery as well for my smoke alarm that was also beeping this morning. So I went to get some groceries, 9-volt batteries. I was only gone for 30, 45 minutes, get home, and my garage door opener no longer works. I changed the battery, thanks to my neighbor. That didn't fix it. So some mass chaos is going on in my house. There's fire alarms that are dead. There's the garage doors dead.
How much cold stuff did you have at the store?
Well, I had, so thankfully I got into my neighbor's garage. They let me in to put my frozen items, my cold items in their freezer. I had several different things that needed to be frozen that I was excited to get into my house. So anyway, today is not only voting day, but just complete and utter disaster all over the place. So despite having said that, we conducted a fantastic interview with Dario Franchitti, multi-time IndyCar champion, multi-time Indy 500 champion, from my vehicle. Stationary in a parking lot where a truck driver did get mad at me in the middle of the interview and did blow his horn because I was apparently parked in a place that I was in the way. So, despite all of what was just said, please stay tuned because we have a few news segments. This section of the show is not going to be that long. We've got a few driver announcements that we have to talk about, and then we're going to get to a truly tremendous interview with Dario. So please stay tuned for that. Chase, we've got some driver announcements to talk about. Let's just get right into it. Right after our show last week, the least surprising news of all time, which, I mean, everyone I think knew this, but Kiffin Simpson, the Ganassi drivers, all 5 of their drivers were announced, and you're like, wait, 5? I thought it was 3. Well, they have an Indy NXT team now, and which is great, I think, for Indy NXT, which is great for us, great for everyone. But Ganassi announced that obviously Scott Dixon, Alex Palou, and Kiffin Simpson are their 3 cars. And then 2 drivers in Indy NXT who I would say some people had questions about whether I think, budgets were necessary there. But that's fine. I don't know these young fellas. I remember Niels Koolin, I believe, a Dutch fella. I saw a couple of his races. But hey, excited for the kids' future. I hope they have a wonderful time wearing cool Chip Ganassi Racing hoodies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Kiffin Simpson, we all knew this was going to happen. But I think, a lot of people are like, wait, why Kiffin, who finished in the back all the time over Linus Lundqvist, who is, on the podium, was on the pole, pretty talented young rookie. Guys, it's a financial sport. Like, I'm sorry, no matter what, Kiffin, and Kiffin is a nice fella. I will say, I've never had any problems with him. And honestly, he's never gotten in the way on the track. So I completely respect that. But I like to be honest on this show. And that is to make this sport work, there are financial elements, right? To strengthen Chip Ganassi Racing, to strengthen the cars of both Scott Dixon and Alex Palou, to maybe pay Alex Palou's salary and Scott Dixon's large salary. There has to be a driver in place like Kiffin Simpson who comes with a lot of funding. So that wasn't a, excommunicating Linus because of a talent issue. It's purely financial. That's where we're at in this game right now. And, all the best to them. Kevin's been great to he's not done anything that's been completely awry or anything like that. And I'm sure he's learning a lot from those guys. So that is why that happened. It's money and that's how the sport works. But that's not a problem. There's several other drivers, who are in the same place. And that's not a judgmental thing. If I had that, that'd be awesome too. We're all just, any driver who wants to throw shade at that is just jealous. Am I jealous? Yeah, of course. Like, that'd be cool to have that type of support.
Plain and simple.
But that's what it is. Yeah. So there was another one as well, Chase, that just happened. And shout out Prema for making your announcement so we could talk about it. Prema Racing, I guess Prema Racing is what we're going to say. A legendary team in the junior formulas kind of all across Europe. They had already announced Callum Ilott, who's going to be their anchor, right? He's the experienced IndyCar veteran. And then Robert Schwartzman is the second driver, which I've known for probably a month or maybe even longer. I think everyone kind of knew that on the low end, but a lot of the fans I saw on Twitter were like, oh, is it going to be Logan? Is it going to be, everyone thought Rossi was going there for a little while. And I mean, Rossi was like, I've never even talked to those guys. So it was an easy seat to speculate about because we don't know much about Prema. But I honestly don't know a lot about Robert Schwartzman myself.
Same.
I obviously know the name. He's a Formula One reserve driver currently, F3 champion. He's definitely had a lot of success in the junior categories. He raced under the Russian flag, under the Russian umbrella, SMP Racing. If anyone remembers Mikel Aleshin from IndyCar several years ago, same support system, some of the Russian funding. Obviously, Russia not in a great spot, not great, not a great country to be associated with currently. And so he's now racing under the Israeli flag, I believe. He was born in Israel, in Tel Aviv. So that'll be an interesting new nationality to have on the grid.
That's a neat crossover.
But it is. So we're gonna have. I hope to have him on the show sometime, Chase. I'd like to learn more about Robert. I hope he enjoys IndyCar. I'm sure he's gonna have a great time. With a new team, new driver, new situation, and what do you think, Chase? I mean, this is just kind of a little bit out of left field. Obviously, for you, definitely, not a familiar name, but obviously, it's good to get new people in the sport at times, I would assume.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is that we kind of have this full picture now of what Prem is bringing to the table. So there wasn't a lot. I didn't have a lot of high expectations for them going into this year because it's their first year. Everybody knows you have growing pains. You got to kind of stumble into it.
Yes,
no one just comes in and takes breath away like this into a series. Like, there's a lot you got to kind of get adjusted to and used to. So I think it's good that we have that full picture now of what to expect, and now they can get to work, get through next season. And then I think coming into 2026, that's when we can really get ready to start making some speculation, seeing how this thing's going to go. But this is nothing more than just kind of like a trial run year, in my opinion. So I'm glad that they've got it all figured out, ready to see what they can do and what they can bring to the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be tough for them. I really do think so. But it would be tough for anyone. I mean, this is a very difficult sport to get into.
Strong in this game.
Exactly. And you know what? Those guys got to be in it for the long haul. And I hope they are. I respect the fact that they are a part of IndyCar. Love that a new team is in the game. So that's really cool. There are a few other things that might have popped up on the internet about some testing that's going on. I think everyone needs to remember that teams get a driver eval day. So if you see Felipe Nasr's testing for Penske at Thermal, well, that's the same test where MSR is testing Logan Sargent. Hunter McElroy was announced today. He's testing for Ed Carpenter Racing. Obviously, Ed Carpenter has two drivers that are signed on multi-year deals. But if they can get some money out of folks or use an extra test day to go testing, they will use these driver eval days. We even see Pietro Fittipaldi's brother testing for McLaren as well. We don't really know what Pietro is going to do next year. We know that Enzo's had some great runs in F2 over the sea. So there's going to be some interesting names. And again, I've kind of been able to see this list of drivers a little early, and I'm sure you'll see some more entertaining names as we go through the offseason on these driver evaluation days. It's basically a free day of testing for the teams. So it's an extra way of gaining more information. And great for these drivers as well to get into an IndyCar. So So that'll be interesting to see. And, suddenly Thermal, big testing location too. Normally everyone tests at Sebring in December, but it seems like this test at Thermal in November is quite popular, and Thermal is part of the championship now. So that'll be important for those teams to get any more information that they can. When it comes to my program, I would say we made some good progress last week and talking to some sponsors. This week, if I'm honest with you guys, and this is not to get political at all, but the election is big for businesses, right? So it doesn't matter which side you're on. The election is super important for any sponsor that you talk to, just because it gives us an idea of what might happen next. So a lot of people can't really make decisions until after literally today. Today is voting day. So we have a few things that are like, all right, we got to just see how it goes. And we'll kind of find out on the other side. Businesses are affected for sure by the results of the election. So I think we made progress though last week, which is good. We hope to be able to have enough time to make sure that I can somehow end up, in IndyCar as a series. We've got basically 5 open seats left. You've got 2 coin seats, 2 JHR seats, and 1 seat at Rahal. A lot of people have been saying that we're not really sure what's going to happen at Rahal. Are they even going to run a third car? I don't know. I would love to. I really hope that they do, because obviously that's a powerhouse organization. Now, their performance has certainly been not where they want it to be, but it would be a shame for them to have to lose a car because of whatever reason. Does that mean then a charter has to go somewhere else? Who knows? So that'll be something interesting to follow, as we go along here. And yeah, we had Halloween. Chase, how was your Halloween? I did Halloween. How was your Halloween?
You did Halloween. I did Halloween. It was good. I ended up, I think it was a 10-minute decision. I had to figure out what I was going to be. I know my child wanted to be Ghostface, but within 10 minutes, I decided to be a massive letdown. So I dressed up as a Yankees player, because the New York Yankees were a massive letdown this season.
Huge letdown.
But, shout out to the Dodgers and billions of dollars. Billions of dollars can do a lot. Just like in racing, you need money. Baseball, $1 billion, you're going straight to a World Series. That's usually how it goes. So Halloween was fun. We had a great time. I think I saw you. Did you go as Ted Lasso? Was that you?
I was Ted Lasso, yes. I full Ted Lasso costume, fake mustache and everything.
You were upside down. What was up with that? You were in an upside down house?
We went to a museum of illusions. So basically, they built these like kitchen setups, these like different room areas on the ceiling, and when you take pictures and you just flip them upside down, it's a cool picture. So we went to me and my girlfriend Amy went to this party. And took quite a few hilarious photographs. And honestly, it was very funny. I don't really understand the whole premise of the whole building, because there are a lot of things where you're just like, I don't know what this is. But it was
kind of like a Ripley's
photos.
Believe It or Not.
Yeah, for basically folks to put on Instagram. It was basically an Instagram creation zone.
Oh wow!
So that was funny. Yeah, but I think we both came to the conclusion, Chase, that there was one man who really took Halloween by storm. I was going to rate. We were going to try to rate IndyCar driver Halloween costumes, but honestly, I went to almost every driver's social channels. No one is doing anything, which again is a huge miss for us as a series. I'm like, all these drivers that we follow and we enjoy interacting with, no one's posted anything on their channels, nothing about Halloween, which again, that's fine. Everyone just out there living their life. It's our off season. But there was one that truly was hilarious, and that was Joseph Newgarden as Homelander.
He won.
Chase, what did you think when you saw that? Did you watch The Boys? I don't know if anyone's seen The Boys on Amazon Prime, but I've watched it. Wild show. But what did you think when you saw that? Very funny. If you know Homelander and you know Joseph Newgarden, it would probably make you laugh.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Is like you have to understand who Homelander is, and I am a fan of The Boys. I ended up like it was out for a long time. I don't think I started watching it until like season 3 came out. But one of my close friends, one of my best friends actually, that I've grown up with my whole life, and we're still tight to this day. Like, he was watching it, and he's like, "You got to watch this show. Like, it's amazing." So I watch it. You see this Homelander. I'm automatically thinking, like, this guy's like the Captain America, the good guy. That's a Joseph Newgarden reference. A lot of people call him Captain America of IndyCar. Well, the longer you get to watching The Boys, the more you realize that this is one terrible man that is, like, supposed to be like the face of IndyCar, but he's actually the villain of the show. And so he kind of doubles he teeter-totters
like
the hero
like
villain.
Dressed as a good guy. Yeah, dressed as a good guy,
right,
but also a villain.
And there is nothing more perfect to sum up what Joseph Newgarden, I feel like, has become in the last 2 years than Homelander's character. A villain, but a hero, kind of an anti-hero villain type of deal going on there. So, yeah, you got to watch The Boys if you haven't, and you will truly understand. Like, I just think that what this says is that Joseph is finally at this point where he is comfortable in his role of who he is in IndyCar to the fans and the storylines. And to me, that is so good for the whole sport, because if you are identifying correctly with what's going on, it's like you can have fun with it, the fans can have fun with it. It's just good for everybody. So I think it was an incredible costume. He also changed again with his children, his wife, and I think he went as Frozen character or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
he had two costumes.
Joseph Newgarden is he's at family stage where he can have multiple costumes, which I respect. Obviously, maybe trick or treat with the young lad, and then have also a funny costume. So shout out Joseph Newgarden for really being one of the only drivers that gave us anything to look at for Halloween. David Malukas was like sad boy Batman. I don't know what was going on there, but he's very much just like he's such a young dude. Like, he's like that popular dude that's got Batman. The vibes, like these dark photographs. Yeah, like emo Batman. But I was like, you know what, David, good for you for being, just a dude, cool
he had a
internet
great
guy.
saga
Cool
with the little
guy.
skeleton. Did you see the skeleton stuff? He had this little skeleton.
Yes.
Carried him around.
Yeah, David's producing great content. Shout out David for being one of the only drivers that's actually active on social media. We appreciate that. And shout out Santino Ferrucci. He was the only other person that put out a post about him dressing up for Halloween. And because I'm out here I'm looking so deep into the internet to try to find costumes that I even went to Santino Ferrucci's profile and I saw that he dressed up. So shout out drivers for just putting stuff on the internet, because almost no IndyCar drivers are doing anything on the internet right now. And it's like, I know that's not our job, but it kind of is our job to try to stay relevant. So I hope that we can find more and more fun things to interact with drivers on the internet. Alexander Rossi went to a horse race for Halloween, essentially. He went out to a horse race, that's the rich guy special, rich cool guy special. Alex Rossi, big horse racing guy. So that is the most Alexander Rossi thing ever. I'm excited for Alexander Rossi. I know I hope he wins $100 million racing horses. That would be awesome. Big gambler, maybe. Who knows? But big horse racing guy. Yeah.
Big fan.
Other than that, I don't really know. There's not a ton going on. I'm sure this week a lot will go on. We hope that this is, if you want us to kind of get into other topics, we're probably going to have a season for this show. So, we're going to shut down for the winter and kind of, do our thing and come back when racing fires up in the spring. But, we've still got several episodes that we want to go through before, the full racing season ends. I'm going to be in Las Vegas for the F1 race commentating. That's kind of my next job, which I'm excited about that. And we're going to have lots of IndyCar news to talk about. But feel free to let us know in the YouTube comments, on the Twitters, on the Instagrams, what you kind of want to see during this offseason. Are you still listening to podcasts? We hope so. Is there something else that might really excite you for this winter? Because we're trying to keep IndyCar, in the news, in the relevancy period, just relevant in general. And please let us know. So Chase, what do you think? You have anything else before we want to get to Dario? Because Dario was a fantastic interview. I think we should let the people right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. All I got to say is that I'm glad that he was not lost in the woods. I'm glad that we have found him, and I'm glad that he has joined us because this is a legend. This is a legend of IndyCar. This is a legend of racing. This is a legend of motorsport. So I've been looking forward to this one, and I know there's a lot of listeners that have been looking forward to it. So I say let's just get right into it.
Absolutely, yeah. Please share this show if you can. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe everywhere on the podcast platforms. Especially if you enjoyed this one. We're going to try to keep doing some great interviews like this. Love chatting with Dario. So with that, we will get right into it. A man who holds many trophies and a man who I give a great introduction to, I think, Dario Franchitti. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about this for a couple weeks. Very, very excited for this guest. A man who has more trophies than most people on the planet, from all types of different motorsport. A man who has found success. A man who has really some of the most incredible hair of all time as well in all of sport. A man who's got a voice that you could recognize from 10 miles away. And someone who is still very, very much a part of the IndyCar paddock. Dario Franchitti, we appreciate you being here, my friend. Thanks for joining the show. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. That was quite the intro. Thank you. Wow.
Well, you deserve it. You have
say that one to my kids.
You deserve it. And we have so many questions for you. I have so many things I want to talk to you about. But let's just get right into it by this. And this might be a tough question. Dario, the state of IndyCar currently. Are you excited? You've got obviously great relationship with Chip Ganassi, and that team has done obviously extremely well over the years. You've had some incredible teammates over the years as well, many Indy 500s where you've found success, championships as well overall. What does IndyCar look like to Dario Franchitti now as a retired legend, per se?
To me, the racing, as you know, I'm at a lot of races, but some races I'm here. I'm sitting here watching as a fan. And when I watch as a fan, I think it's one of, if not the best products on the planet. I mean, yeah, there was a couple of hard races, like Iowa, they weren't great races this year, whatever, and occasionally you get it wrong, but generally it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal as a product, and the competition level is incredible. The drivers are good personalities. There's still the danger aspect, all those things, and that all excites me. The TV numbers have been disappointing. They've been disappointing for a long time. And as somebody that lived through the split, it's nice to see it doing that a bit, but it just needs to do it more. You see the popularity of certainly F1, and I'm talking about in the US now, and NASCAR has been so popular for so long that there's just something that hasn't clicked again with IndyCar, and it's not I don't think it's the product. I'm excited for the Fox deal. I think that's NBC did a phenomenal job. They were a great partner, but it's maybe time to try something new. And so the charter systems, I think it's going to be interesting. Give the owners maybe some more skin in the game.
Has Chip offered you any percentage of any charters?
No.
Give Dario a little ownership, maybe a little skin in the game.
Yeah, no. I watched as a driver. You'll have done this, and it's a me. And then as in my job with Ganassi now that I've done for I think 10 years, twice as long as I drove there. Well, my first year, 2014, I sat next to Chip at one of the races. I think it might have been the 500. And one car ran out of fuel and one car had another issue. And he took his headset off and he looked at me and said, well, I think I'll go to Charlotte. And that was it. And I thought, I don't want to be an owner. I never, ever want to be an owner. It's a hard job. And I've only really realized that since being in my new job.
So you mentioned your new job. I'm going to talk about your old job for a little bit. You went through an era of Champ Car, IndyCar, which was, I mean, that's the era that I watched growing up, right? Like some incredible cars now in the late car era, like some amazing vehicles performance wise, some incredible drivers, some great rivalries. Do you see the same thing in the series now? Are there those same rivalries that were in the sport when you were getting into it? Is there anything similar you see now that what we had kind of back in the day, or no, or is it a little bit just of a different era because we have social media and we can't, you got to be careful. Everything you say, everything you do and say is there's photographs of it everywhere, stuff like that.
I think we were fortunate in the fact that we got to, in a lot of ways, live our lives away from the track, and we got to have a lot of fun. And you saw, like, with Carlos Sainz the other day, Mexico, he just was like, come on, I just want to celebrate. And everybody's holding phones up and all that kind of
crazy
stuff. Just was like, come on, give the guy a break. We got to live it a bit away from that. As far as a period to be a driver, I'm sitting here, I've got how big that is, like a 4 foot by 4 foot picture of Greg Moore just off to my right. And Greg, it was 25 years ago last week that Greg died, and still keeping an eye on me. But the last one that we had in TK, Max, and Paul Tracy, I'm looking, Jimmy Vassar, I've got the helmets up here. That was a crazy period in time, both on the track, driving those crazy cars, and then the fun and the camaraderie and the brotherhood that was formed out of the track. And to compare the cars, I don't know, the drivers, those cars were wild. They were this horsepower that they were almost untamable at times, and I think that caught people's attention. The cars now, I don't think, are easy to drive. I think what the drivers do, I don't think the drivers today maybe get the credit that they deserve, because it's bloody impressive. You see at Indy, these speeds over 232, 233, approaching 235 mile an hour averages. That's impressive. And so things have changed, but I think some of the maybe the sort of the swashbuckling nature's gone, and that's been gradually eroded through time. You look at the 60s, and, those incredible drivers, the 70s, the 80s, and bit by bit it's been a little bit more sanitized, both on and off the track. I think as a sport, the Max Verstappen thing and swearing in the press conference when he got fined, I just thought,
crazy.
At the end.
It's crazy,
right? The end is near.
Yeah. I love, I guess, looking back at those days of, the Team Cool Green cars. Some cars that just looked incredible. They sounded good. Part of me thinks that we are in an era where I just wish the race cars sounded good again. Like I wish they would scream down the front straight and you'd be like, it would make the hair on your arm stand up a little bit. You know what I mean? Do you think we're missing a little bit of that? Do you think that we're missing a little bit of that? Like, obviously we're in a hybrid era, which we respect the manufacturers for wanting to do that. But I kind of wish we had a little bit of that craziness of, like, that thing sounds so good that, like, I'm excited in multiple different ways.
Right? I tell you what, everybody that's watching, when you're finished here, go on to wherever you search for your things and watch Gilles de Ferran's pole position lap at Fontana.
Insane.
When was that? 2001. Watch that. Listen to that engine. The problem with that is that cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
16,000 RPM cost a lot of money. We were putting engines in the car for qualifying, taking them out, putting another engine in for practice, and then another one in for the race. And obviously that's not sustainable, but I don't think it's difficult to make engines sound good. And I think we're not far away. And I you said about the state of the sport. I'd love to see somebody come and play with Chevy and Honda, a third manufacturer. Yes. But got to keep the costs under control. But yeah, let's get them sounding a bit bit better. I think the ultimate issue with that is F1. They sound crap. They sound absolutely
terrible.
And that's a real shame.
Yeah, I completely agree, because you see there's so many viral clips on the internet now of just people putting out videos from like 2004. And it's like, that's 20 years ago now, yes. But like realistically, it's not like an entirely different, universe. Like it's right there, and people are like, wait a second. Even the young folks, young fans are like, wait a second, cars sounded like this? Race cars sounded like this? And I'm like, that's what I grew up like loving. And it's something that I think excites the young fan. It excites even the more veteran fans as well. I mean, it's something that I would love to see. I don't know how it's possible. You think it's possible with the hybrid and with the way the turbos are now? Like, I believe it is from a scientific standpoint.
I mean, those engines were turbocharged. The ones that we're talking about in the late 90s, early 2000s, those were turbocharged. So that didn't, the way they were set up, that didn't hurt the sound. Obviously the high revving. I mean, an F1 engine was 20,000 RPM at that point. But yeah, why not? Why not? It's so much about the show, and you've got to have it's a big part of it. The soul of any car is the engine, is the noise that it makes.
Absolutely. So let's get back to this more current era. So your job, for those that don't know, right? We try to tell IndyCar fans, like, just get it a little bit beneath the surface. Let's find out things that we might not have known. Tell folks what you're actually doing in the team, because everyone sees you on the pit stand, and maybe they're like, oh, Dario he's supporting the boys, right? He's supporting the team, but you're actually in there working with the guys, trying to understand, how to make everyone better as a group, because Chip Ganassi Racing is the best team on the grid, if not one of the best, obviously, and just kind of give folks a look at what day-to-day job life is for Dario.
So I've got a couple of jobs, obviously the Ganassi job that will work with Gordon Murray as well, with great cars we get to make. But the Ganassi job, I spend more time in the trailer. I've got like a little war room in the trailer with my screens, and during the sessions, I get to watch all the things I need to watch. And during the session and after the session, I'm looking for performance. I'm looking, last year was 5 cars. That was a little much, I must admit, trying to cover 5. Then next year, 3 cars. And it's trying to find any performance that we can during the session. But a lot of the work happens off, before the season. I was on the phone to Mike Hall an hour ago, and we were talking about an issue that we've got, and he was asking advice on that. I've got an email sitting on the screen from one of our engineers, just going through some of the issues we think each of our 3 drivers for next year has, and how we can improve. And I've had conversations with Scott, with Alex, with Kiffin on, these are the areas we need to look at improving, and then it's putting all that into practice. So it's really helping that incredible group of people that we've got at Ganassi to try and to get better performance, better results. And it's, if I can do that, and if I can add a little bit, it's very satisfying.
This is a very random question, but did you know that in the 2011 season, Charlie Kimball was your teammate there at Ganassi, and he had broken his wrist before Mid-Ohio, the Mid-Ohio event, and then Giorgio Pantano was in the car? Did Chip ever say, Chip called my dad about me driving that car? How crazy would that have been if we were teammates when I was 18 years old? Because I still, to this day, it's my biggest gripe with my father is I was like, Dad, why would you ever say no? I was just a youth. I was just a young lad. But my dad said no because he thought I wasn't. Wrong. He said no because I wasn't ready yet, and he thought I was going to get more chances. And sure enough, those chances never come again. But what is there any situation that you have in your career where you were like, well, we actually decided to go one way or another? Because for me, I'm like, I look back on that, I'm like, I will regret that until I'm in the grave, dead. But I obviously didn't even know until afterwards. So is there any situation like that in your career that you've had?
How much later did he tell you?
Years. It was a few years.
Old.
Yeah, it's a few years.
That would have been funny because I first remember meeting you. I think it was at Pit Fit, and you were about 10, maybe 11. Yeah. And I remember going back to, I think it was, I was staying at Kyle and Tracy Moyer's house, and I said, I just met Connor Daly. He's really buttoned up. I don't know what happened to you since then, but yeah, you were the most buttoned up 11-year-old or whatever you were I'd ever met.
Passionate.
Yeah, well, you were focused. So my situation, I would say 19... So I tested a McLaren F1 car in 1995, and it goes pretty well. Somewhere I've got a letter that Ron wrote me saying, well done, that test went well, but we're not going to hire you as test driver. Okay, it's fine. 1997, I've talked to, actually it was Paul Morgan, one of the partners at Ilmore, sat with him end of 96, a Mercedes end of season party. Paul had asked me what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to go to race car, IndyCar. He said, I'll see what I can do. Anyway, I get over there, test the Hogan car, I get the job. Ron calls, or Ron's assistant calls and said, Mr. Dennis would like to see you back in Woking. I said, okay, can I bring my manager? And they said, absolutely not. So I go there, Norbert Haug, who was boss of Mercedes Motorsport, and Ron are at one side of the table, I'm at the other. They lay out this whole program where I'm going to be the test driver. Bear in mind, F1 test drivers at that time drove 3 days a week, every week. And they lay out this whole schedule. You will test Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We will fly you privately back to Heathrow. You will get on the Concorde. This is how long ago it was. We'll get you on the Concorde. We'll fly you to New York. You will then fly privately to wherever you're racing in the US. You'll race Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday night, you will repeat that and come back. This is going to be your life. And we will help support your income.
First of all.
Right? So I looked at the thing and I think it was a 7 or 9 year contract. I've still got the contract, it's like that. And my manager, Julian, and I read through it. And I basically told Ron no. I was like, nah, I don't want to do it. And that I wonder occasionally what would have happened, what would have come. Would it have been better? Would it have been worse? And that's probably one of the bigger sliding doors moments in my career.
Yeah, the racing life is a wild one. I tell you what, you're always one day away from a completely different path, it seems, which is kind of, I mean, people don't realize how either things could be different just by doing this, could be different by one lap per se. You know what I mean? It's wild.
But one fraction of a second.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
The Detroit 2008, my NASCAR thing, it ended. I went to watch my brother race in sports car, and Indy cars were there at the same time. What would have happened had I not sat down next to Mike Hull and had a chat with him? That led to the further 3 championships and a couple of 500s with Chip and who I'm still with those guys today. Had I decided, no, sod it, I'm going back to Scotland to go and have some fun.
It's incredible. I'm going to let Chase jump in here as well. I know he's got some questions for you.
Yeah, Dario, it's kind of perfect setup for my question that I have. I wanted to talk a little bit about 2008 and the NASCAR season where you ran. Kind of talk us through like what brought you to that decision and how that season with all of the crazy things that happened, how did that shape you for your return to IndyCar the following year?
So I had talked to Chip at the end of 2006 about coming and doing NASCAR. I'd always been fascinated by it. I'd watched it a long time. I'd never been to a race, and actually until I drove I drove my first ARCA race at Talladega, I'd never sat in a stock car. I didn't do much research, but I'd always been fascinated by it, and I'd always enjoyed. It was literally simple as I'd enjoyed watching it. So Chip and I were talking about doing a deal for 2007, and then Montoya got fired by McLaren, and Monty got the job. So, which was good for me because I then won the 500 in the championship that year. Yeah, so that was kind of to Chip. But anyway, end of the season, he's like, "Hey, do you want to do this? Yeah, I'd accomplished everything I wanted in the sport, in IndyCar. I'd won a 500. Well, I thought I'd accomplished everything I wanted. I'd won a 500. I'd won a championship where I was looking like I was going to win a championship, but I was happy. I thought, time for something else, time to recharge the batteries, find some new motivation. And that was really the thinking. And there was all kinds of issues because I was leaving the Andretti organization and going to Ganassi. Anyway, I got in the car at Talladega, the ARCA car, and within the first 50 meters, I thought in my head, oh my God, what have I done? And I just, it didn't, an IndyCar, it takes your breath away. And the stock car was a hell of a challenge, more of a challenge, I think, than anything I've ever driven in my life. But it never took my breath away. And I was, at that point, 34? And I had a whole new thing to learn. And Jimmy and I talked about this the other night. We were having more than a few beers together. And we were talking about when he came to IndyCar and how difficult it is to learn something new at that period. So it gave me even more respect for the drivers and the teams in NASCAR. And in the Cup stuff, I got my ass kicked. It was those horrible COT cars. They were just, I mean, I've got an SUV outside that handles better. But then in the Xfinity series, it was the old style cars, and they were cool, and I was making progress with those cars. And one week I'd do well on that, and then I'd get back in the Cup car and I'd suck. And anyway, it was a big lesson in life because I'd gone from winning the 500 in the championship to basically getting my ass kicked most weeks. And the highlight being qualifying on the front row at Bristol, running a bunch of laps up front there. And then at Watkins Glen, qualifying on the pole against guys like Jimmy and Kyle Busch and Logano and all those guys. That was good, but that was would be the two bright spots. So I didn't want to go back to IndyCar. I wasn't ready enough. And then I went to Detroit, and the rest is history. But I was so hungry to show I could still do it. And I really think it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about being out of my comfort zone, because earlier in my career, pre-NASCAR, the car had to be exactly as I needed it to go quick. And after NASCAR, I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll hang on to whatever you want. And it opened. I had a much wider window as a driver, and I had a much wider window of life. And that helped a lot. And I was determined to kick ass.
I find it very interesting that you say that, because I have obviously done some NASCAR stuff this year and the last couple years. Not a ton, but I've tried to explain to folks on this show because it's very difficult. And my spotter was Stevie Reeves, he was an open wheel guy, and he knows how difficult it is for the open wheel guys to go to the NASCAR stuff. But for a guy like Kyle Larson or Jimmy to go to a car that has a ton more downforce and a ton more grip, that's every driver's best friend. So can you explain to folks maybe because I was trying to say it, and I was like, I find it much more difficult to go to that realm, but I believe that me doing some of that stuff and some of the midget racing I've done on dirt has actually made me better on ovals overall, because ever since I started even racing midgets, like at the Chili Bowl, I've been better on ovals. And clearly that's been my strength from going over to do that. So can you kind of explain to folks what you think why that is?
I think the first thing is the messages these cars give to everybody watching. We're talking about the minutiae here, the tiniest little difference. And then all these messages the car gives you when it's moving around and sliding around, you get trained into a certain thing. And my brain was trained into IndyCar, as is yours. You get in a stock car and it starts doing all this weird stuff and feels completely different when it slides. Instead of sliding in a way that we're used to, it does it completely differently. And then to drive the car on the ragged edge that was the difficulty certainly for me. But because I kind of half got used to doing that, when I got back to something familiar, my balance was almost sharper. It was like, oh, you could feel it starting to go before it almost went. You could feel the messages earlier. And I think because the stock car is slower, it's a bit heavier, things happen slower, so you can then drive it further and yaw. So when the Indy car's up on its toes and very alive, your brain can pick up on that a bit quicker. I'm with you. I thought it was a great education for me, and it was a very humbling experience. But I wouldn't, looking back, I wouldn't have missed it.
Tough
Kind of
battle
like
for the
playing
ego,
like a
too.
video game on hard,
ego battle.
and then you go to something else, and then it's just easier as you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I talked to Jimmy about it. Jimmy's problem was the messages the IndyCar was giving him. He just couldn't translate that. The car would start to slide, and Jimmy was a little bit behind it because he was used to a certain way. I mean, anybody that's watched an IndyCar, if Jimmy Johnson driving one of those 900 horsepower Cup cars, just dancing it around beautifully, he couldn't get that feeling in the IndyCar. And both him and I are, we know what we're talking about when we talk about how difficult that swap is. We did have a race across London on line bikes on Sunday, the electric rental bikes. That nearly got interesting.
You and Jimmy do a lot of hanging out, which I respect. I like Jimmy a lot. He's a great, first of all, a great human being. I enjoyed getting to race with him, and you obviously got to work with him at Ganassi. Now you guys are in this stage of life where it looks like you're having a great time. Goodwood, awesome time. Just kind of hanging out with the boys, driving some cars, having a great time. What's life like now with Jimmy? Are we hanging out all the time?
That's also a wild event. I think that's a great event.
Goodwood's amazing. Yeah, you didn't mention that Jimmy put a dent in a $6 million Aston Martin.
Oh, I did see that. Who covered that bill?
Yeah,
the owner did. We've got to do some really cool stuff together. We got to do Spa 6 Hour last year. We've done Goodwood a couple of times together. We did it in that beautiful Aston Martin. We won there together this year. And there's a great bit where Jimmy thinks he screwed up the whole race under caution because he doesn't know the rules, and he's talking to himself in the car. It's on my Twitter feed. And he said, well, if ever you needed to know how much it meant to me for winning, you'll see. But we're just having fun. We go, skiing, a bit of shooting, like clay pigeon shooting, bird shooting, just our families hanging out together. Dixie and Emma and the kids come along too with Ellie and our kids. So it's him and Shani spending time here has been an absolute blessing. And Scott and Emma and the kids is just cool. And my brother Marino gets involved, and there's a whole crazy community. So Jimmy, yeah, like you say, Jimmy's a good dude. He's one of the best. He's for those of you at home, he's surprisingly wild.
Oh, I don't think it's very surprising, but
I've heard a lot of stories.
Yeah, they're great stories.
I've actually told people that Ricky Bobby was based on Jimmy Johnson, and people don't believe me, but I think it's true, dude. I really do.
I mean, this surfing on the golf cart story, all this stuff. But I will say, right up until anything competitive happens, and then the eyes narrow a little bit, you're like, here we go.
I enjoyed, when I was trying to make my first Daytona 500, I enjoyed that Jimmy was also a part of that, because he was very helpful to me after we had, kind of done a little bit of that, a bit of IndyCar motor racing together. But it was cool to see the smile on his face when I was then jumping into his world, like a complete lunatic who I had no idea what I was doing. And it was cool to kind of just have that bit of camaraderie and that bit of advice, because a very smart guy as well as a fun person.
Exactly right. He was one of the few guys I would say that really reached out all the time when I was trying to make the transition. He was to Cup. He was on the end of the phone, but then he'd sort of say, we'd be at one track and he'd say, yeah, so I'm going in there and I'm lifting a little, just cracking the throttle about, and I'm thinking, I'm braking. Like, so, but we're having a lot of fun.
I love that. Chase has another funny question for you, I believe, that I also am very curious to know the answer of.
Yeah, so I think this is going to probably be my last question for you today, Dario. This is a big one. So not many people in the world have songs written about them. JB Lynch and Preem D, Dario Franchitti, probably one of the top three maybe top three rap songs of the racing world, I would say. I still move swift like Dario Franchitti, kind of slow, kind of got that like 2004 rap scene vibes. How you feeling? Could you catch yourself listening to that one on like a nice Sunday drive? Just build your confidence up.
Kids out in the car.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't told my kids there's a song. I haven't told my kids yet.
You haven't told your kids
them?
there's a rap song about you?
That might be actually doubtful that there'll be any more brownie points on that one. But yeah, I was like,
have you ever met
someone's
them?
done it. No, I never met them. No, I did.
No way.
No, I don't know how that all happened, but yeah, it was. It's one of those odd things that happens in life.
When I showed Chase that song, it was one of the funniest things ever because I had also not heard it in a long time. I was like, Chase, you gotta listen to this song because it is just hilarious for anyone who's in the IndyCar world. And I still think it's one of the funniest things ever.
It's really
still live
a
on
big
YouTube.
deal.
You can check it out.
You might have a couple of rap songs here and there that like mention the Indy 500. You might have a few that talk about like, Andretti, but nobody's got the title Dario for, you know what I mean? Like nobody's got a title of a rap song out here.
Good point.
Hang
Chase.
the banner. Hang the banner.
Hang the banner. It's time, Dario.
All about that. I might have to
We got to
it
get
played
them to a race, dude. We got to go find JB Lynch and Preem D. We got to bring them out. I think it's time.
Dario, I've got like at least one more question for you. But when we look at the future of IndyCar, you mentioned the Fox deal earlier. We know that there's a new car coming in we hope the next 2 years. Do you feel like the momentum that Roger has brought as an owner of the organization is extremely positive? And what do you think? I always like to try to ask people, what do you think? What else do we need? What is the next step of what IndyCar needs as a series? Obviously, yeah, there's the easy ones like, okay, a new manufacturer would be sweet. That'd be great. That'd be great for competition. A new car would be awesome. But is there anything else that, comes to your mind when you think, hey, I think we need this, that, or whatever to truly take the series to finally take the fight to NASCAR every weekend?
I think we have to listen to the experts. I think when I say we, I think Roger and his team need to listen to the promoters and the real. I'm talking, race promoters. That's one thing, but also promoters as in like Scott Borchetta. I was sitting just over the back there and talking to Scott the other night, and one thing Scott knows above all else is promotion, and you'll struggle to find a bigger racing fan in the world. And he just wants IndyCar to be so strong. He just wants it to be better and better. And he's got a vested interest now as a promoter of the last race of the year. But listen to a guy like that, sitting down, pick his brains, and don't just talk to old guys like us that, the way it was. Let's bring new ideas in, people to engage the next generation too. And let's keep doing it. I do love the fact that our drivers and our teams, when you see kids at the races, they're just like, come on, what do you want to do? Come and see the car. I think we're a very friendly paddock in all kinds of ways, but especially when you see kids coming along and showing an enthusiasm for the races. I think that's really important for the future. So that would be my main thing. I think that's really... It's really important that we engage. We've got those brains. We've got those smart people that want to help. So let's let them.
And real quick as well, do you feel as though there's any stories you can share from the golden era of IndyCar, which I consider to be 2004 to like 2003, maybe to 2008-ish, maybe 9? Is there anything that's fun where you're like, hey, me and the boys, we're talking TK, our great pal Dan, all the guys that were just superstars back in the day. Is there anything you'd like to share with us about how much fun everyone was having back in the day?
Yeah. I mean, I was so fortunate to have this group of friends. You know, the first Greg, with Max, with Tony, JV. I mean, just such a good bunch. And then to become teammates with Tony, first of all, and then we got Dan, who we described. He was kind of like the little brother we didn't want. And then we got the bonus of Herta. I would say the one thing to tell you about that time, everything you saw there was no acting, there was no BS, there was all that stuff. That was it was the most bizarre situation. The friendship, the being happy when your teammates won. I mean, when Dan was really winning all the time, it was a little bit boring, but that was a genuine friendship there. We had some situations, there was one time we had to sit Dan down, all three of us, and basically say, no, that's not the way we're going to do it. But to be in a situation like that was really special. And I think I've been fortunate. My teammates, starting going back to Scott, when Dix and I were teammates, we had some proper fights, and we were fighting for championships all the time. But then you go back to the Tony, Brian, Dan, Paul Tracy. I mean, PT Wildman, right? You think, oh my God, he'd be a terrible teammate. He was a great teammate. There was no BS. There was no screwing around. We crashed into each other a lot. Probably his fault more than mine. But we...
Allegedly, yeah.
We got on ever so well. And I'm looking up at this helmet collection I've got on the wall, and I see Bernd Schneider's helmet. He was the one that taught me how to be a teammate. And I was fortunate. I had great teammates, and those, unfortunately, some of those guys aren't with us anymore. But the ones that are, we are lifelong. We're lifelong friends. Way after Tony and I used to say, when we're finished driving. Well, now we are finished driving. We don't spend enough time together, but when we do, it's a little different than we maybe did back in the old days. But we enjoy each other's company. We love each other's company, and we have a lot of fun.
I love that. And honestly, I truly don't know if we have the same level of brotherhood these days. I mean, I consider a lot of the guys in the paddock now to be really good friends of mine, but it does seem like there was a next level of brotherhood that is honestly very admirable. And I don't know what changed. I don't know what's a little bit different, but I consider, some of the guys like Colton Herta, who's obviously he inherits being a great dude from his dad, right? I consider him to be one of my closest friends in this paddock, and there's a lot of great stuff there. But, it's just a bit of a different era, maybe. Just a bit of a different era, but it is very admirable to look back on, for sure.
I think Greg was an interesting one, because a lot of us came from that European background, very selfish, and Greg's like, right. He was the party organizer, and he was the one that sort of said, right, he kind of, you couldn't say no to Greg. He was just, this is what we're doing. And he had this energy, and he brought the paddock together. He was the organizer. He was the paddock revolved around him. And that continued, long after he was gone, fortunately. But these things change. And it's funny, you look at the group now, and you see even the younger guys, a lot of them have got kids, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. We had a different sort of outlook, I guess, at that time.
Yeah. All right. Before I let you go, honestly, this has been a tremendous conversation, and we really appreciate this. We gave you some shade on this show for potentially being too hungover to be a part of the show. We got Hinch, and Hinch was on the show, and he might have said a few things like, "Oh, Dario's still at the bar" or whatever like that. But that's okay. You made up for it. All is fine. Give us a top 3 Indy 500 prediction next year. I want a top 3 in no particular order. Just 3 drivers that are going to be in the top 3 of the Indy 500 next year, right out the gate. I love seeing where people's minds go on the spot.
I mean, you've got to say, Newgarden's been strong. I'd much rather it wasn't that way. He's and you guys, he's the opposition, but he's been strong. Dixie deserves another one.
Yeah.
Another one? I don't know. I want Dixie, and I think he's been so close. Dixie will be in the fight. With everything we're putting into place, Dixie will be in the fight. We'll give him the stuff he needs to do the job, and then that brings along Mr. Three-Timer, old Paloi. I think he's proven that I think he knows how to win at that track. So I think those three will slug it out, and then you can probably add another 7 or 8 people, such as the 500, and that's why we love it. And it's a batshit race. It's phenomenal. It's the emotion of it is why we love it. It's why 350,000 plus people come there to watch and to see what is going to happen. And I was going to say I can't wait, but I do get really nervous. I was a lot more chilled and zen in the car.
I love it. Well, you gave us the 3 easiest picks possible, so that makes sense. I think any gambler would probably make those same picks too.
You're right. You're right on par with the lines, dude. You're doing great.
Yeah, exactly. Dario, I appreciate you, man. This has been fantastic, and this is our 150th episode, so this is very big number. And we had a big driver who is a celebrity, a legend with us, so thank you. We appreciate you.
Connor, Chase, thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, we appreciate you guys listening to that. I really hope you enjoyed that. It was a great, honest interview with Dario. He's such a good speaker. He's got a great voice, obviously. The Scottish man, great hair, and we really appreciate him. Chase, what'd you learn from Dario? What do you think was the most fun thing to chat about?
Man, really just kind of like asking about his NASCAR stint. Like I know it was definitely not the timing of that year was crazy, and like doing, just some research of looking into it. So to get kind of his thoughts on like how that helped, because I mean, he bounced back, with his other 2 500 victories he had when he came back. So I think it was just like the good shakeup that he needed to get back in the action. And just learned a lot about crossing over. I feel like I learned more and more as we talk to guys like this about how challenging it is. It's not easy to just go from one type of race car to another one. So always great. And then just always great to just talk to a legend that has a rap song about them. So you don't get to do that often.
Yeah. Very funny for sure. Enjoyed that chat. So with that, let's get to our favorite segment on the show. The Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week.
The greatest event of its kind that's ever been run on.
Let's meet the drivers. Who make up the field?
This week, we went to the 1946 Indy 500, the 1946 Indy 500. We found a name that we have not used yet before. We have a person that we have not understood before. I do not have my laptop with me because obviously I'm doing the show from my vehicle. And so to make it convenient, I'm going to tell Chase who we found, and he's going to read off who this person is. The 7th place finisher in the 1946 Indianapolis 500, Luigi Villoresi. Luigi Villoresi, fantastic name, first of all. And so Chase, tell us who this person was and how many Indy 500s they've had in their life, etc.
Well, it's all in a name. Luigi. He was born in Milan. No surprises there. His nickname was Gigi, which is great. I had a Momo Gigi once. I used to have a grandmother. I called her Gigi. So definitely share some of the Italian vibes there. Got a little bit of Italian vibes in me. But he was a big Formula One guy. He competed in Formula One at the time of its inception. He had a brother as well, Emilio Villoresi. So kind of another big name of the past. And he only raced in one Indy 500, 1946, started 28th, finished 7th. Wow. So, I mean, it does appear he may have had that dog in him. He stuck it out, but cool. It was the only one. It was the only race.
I love that.
Yeah, that was it.
I really got love one top 10 and driver who's only done one Indy 500. Yeah,
it's like you got to say you got it done.
Cool yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's That's awesome. Where is he? Is he dead now? Is he alive? We know when he passed away?
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure, yeah, he's definitely dead. He died in 1997, the 24th of August.
All right.
And he passed away at age 88 in Italy. So he was back in Italy when he did pass away. I don't have a lot of information on how he passed away, but I'm going to just assume it was old age. But I mean, he lived a life. El Grafico.
He meant long life. Yeah.
He is. He
awesome.
looked.
Well,
I'm looking here. He looks like he was on a magazine cover. This guy. I mean, he was a guy.
Nice. I love that.
That's what we got.
With that, another random Indy 500 driver of the week that we found that has one Indy 500 to his name. So that's really cool. I love finding that. We appreciate you guys listening. Please share this video, share the podcast. If you feel like it, leave us a note in the rating system, whether you love us. And if not, well, just, keep it to yourself. That's fine. It's all right.
You can hate.
We appreciate you folks for listening. I really enjoy this program, and I hope everyone has a great week. There will be there was a crazy NASCAR race that, again, this is an IndyCar show, so we didn't get into it much because we have a lot of great things to talk about with Dario this week. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about it next week. Who knows? But thank you to Dario for joining us, and stay tuned. We'll have another great guest hopefully next week on Speed's Tree, and we'll see you there. Thank you. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.